Story number 1.
The Man in Apartment 4B. They say New York City never sleeps, but the building on Wren Street had been oddly quiet for weeks. Apartment 4B, in particular, was too quiet. For nearly a year, David Langston, a 34-year-old software engineer, had kept to himself. No parties, no guests, no packages, rent always paid on time. A perfect tenant, until one day the hallway began to smell. It was a neighbor, Mrs. Carmichael, who first complained. Something sour, like meat, she told the super. When he knocked on 4B's door, no one answered. But the smell, it was undeniable. The police arrived the next morning with a warrant. What they found inside was worse than anything imagined. The apartment was immaculately clean, sterile even. No furniture beyond a single mattress, a fold-out table, and a laptop. The air was cold from an always-running portable AC unit, but the bathroom was where it all unraveled. Inside the tub were dozens of vacuum-sealed packages, each labeled with a name. Frozen, some were human remains, confirmed by forensic teams days later. David Langston was nowhere to be found. A deeper investigation revealed the truth. David didn't exist. His identity had been stolen 3 years prior from a man who had died in a hiking accident. The person living in 4B was using an expertly crafted alias. No fingerprints in the system, no matches to DNA. He'd vanished without a trace. But that wasn't the worst part. Detectives found folders on the laptop, each labeled with names corresponding to the packages in the tub. Inside were detailed surveillance logs, work schedules, addresses, phone calls, browser histories, victims from all over the Northeast. Each folder ended with a timestamp and a phrase, "Harvest complete." The killer had been operating undetected for years. Across state lines, cold cases suddenly sparked to life. A missing jogger in Vermont, a college student in Pennsylvania, a taxi driver from Jersey City. All of them now linked to one man who didn't exist. 6 months later, a fresh package appeared in a Brooklyn police precinct's mailroom. No return address. Inside was a flash drive and a note. The note simply read, "You're looking in the wrong direction. I was never in 4B. That was just storage." The drive? It contained a live video feed of another room, sterile, cold, a new package in the tub, and in the corner of the frame, a man's silhouette, watching.
Story number 2. The Widow of Whitetail Road. Whitetail Road was a sleepy stretch in rural Oregon, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone and everyone knew Margaret Bell. Sweet, widowed, in her late 60s, always tending her roses. Her husband Gerald had died in a fire 5 years earlier. Tragic accident, they said, until a teenage boy crashed his bike near the edge of her property. He swore he saw someone in the barn, chained to a beam. The sheriff didn't believe it at first, but protocol forced a welfare check. When they arrived, Margaret greeted them kindly, offered coffee, and even joked about the rumors. But when they insisted on checking the barn, her face went pale. Inside, behind an old wall of hay bales, officers found a man, frail, barely alive, beard down to his chest. It was Gerald Bell, the husband, who was supposedly dead. He wasn't just alive, he was a prisoner. Gerald had been kept in the barn for 5 years. His burns, real, but not from a fire, from chemical burns, inflicted during a staged accident. Margaret had faked his death, cashed in his life insurance, and lived comfortably while he rotted in the dark. Her motive? Gerald had been planning to leave her for another woman. She couldn't handle it. And Gerald? Too weak to speak, but with tears in his eyes, he mouthed just 2 words. She smiled. Story number 3. Caller ID unknown.
At 2:13 a.m., Maria Ferris's phone rang. Unknown number. She declined it. It rang again and again. Frustrated, she finally answered. No voice, just heavy breathing. The call lasted 27 seconds. The phone traced it to somewhere inside her apartment building. She lived alone on the 14th floor. Maria called the police. They arrived fast, checked the stairwells, the halls, the security cameras. Nothing. No signs of entry. But when she returned to her apartment, her bedroom light was on. She was sure she had turned it off. On her bed was her phone, recording. The video showed her sleeping, and someone standing over her for a full minute. The face was blurry, but they were holding her phone. Police pulled every bit of footage from the building's elevators and doors. Still, no one ever entered. No prints, no forced entry, no signs of tampering. And then the texts started. One message, every night, always the same words. Why don't you lock the balcony? She lived on the 14th floor.
Story number 4.
The confession booth. In 2018, a dying man walked into a church in Baltimore, asked to confess, and never walked out. Father Desmond, the priest on duty, later described the man as ashen, shaking, like the devil was behind him. He confessed to 12 murders, all women, all dumped near highways. He described the scenes in perfect detail, even ones never released to the public. Then he collapsed. Dead. Massive heart attack. No ID. The local PD began digging. What they found? Matched everything. But here's where it turns. DNA proved he wasn't the killer. He hadn't committed the murders. He had witnessed them. In his confession, he described a man in a mask who made him watch. Over and over again, for years. That masked man, still out there. And worse, the priest, disturbed by the details, reviewed the church's camera footage that night. There was no one in the confessional. No record of a man entering the booth, only Father Desmond, talking to himself. But the tape still captured the voice on the other end, low, raspy, whispering. It's your turn now.